This morning we're reading from 2 Kings chapter 2. My notes printed out really well. Elaine normally doesn't even allow me to touch the stuff in the copy room. She just shoos me out of there. 2 Kings chapter 2, when the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, the Lord has sent me to Bethel." But Elisha said, "As surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. The company of the prophets of Bethel came out to Elisha and asked, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," Elijah replied. "So be quiet." I love that response. So be quiet. Then Elijah says to him, "Stay here, Elisha, the Lord has sent me to Jericho." And when he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went to Jericho. The company of the prophets at Jericho went up to Elisha and asked him, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," he replied. "So be quiet." Then Elijah said unto him, "Listen, the world around you may provide a negative rhetoric. They might try to divert your attention from the blessings of God and your confidence that you have in God. So be quiet." Learn to say that to the world. So be quiet. Then Elijah said unto him, "Stay here, the Lord has sent me to Jordan." And he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So he walked on. 50 men from the company of the prophets went and stood at a distance facing the place where Elijah and Elisha had stopped at the Jordan. Elijah took his cloak, rolled it up, and struck the water with it. The water divided to the right and to the left, and the two of them crossed over on dry ground. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit," Elisha replied. "You have asked a difficult thing," Elijah says. "Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it will be yours. Otherwise, it will not." As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw this and cried out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel." And Elijah saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garment and tore it into two. Elisha then picked up Elijah's cloak that had fallen from him and went back and stood on the bank of Jordan. He took the cloak that had fallen from Elijah and struck the water with it. "Where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" he asked. When he struck the water, it divided to the right and to the left and crossed over. And he crossed over. The company of the prophets from Jericho who were watching said, "The spirit of Elijah is resting on Elisha." And they went to meet him and bowed to the ground before him. The key verse, when they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit," Elisha replied. Let us pray. Gracious God, thank you for your word. Thank you for the opportunity to be gathered here, to allow your Spirit to minister us and to touch our hearts and minds. Draw us together and closer to you in our faith as you speak to us this morning. Amen. Hope changes everything. Hope means to desire with expectation of obtainment, to expect with confidence. What do you see hope in on your everyday journey? Where do you see hope? Is it through ministries like SACPAC and our food pantry and Rising Stars and our youth program and Kids Hope? Do you see hope in a congregation full of people willing to love and serve God? Do you see hope in a completely free Christian concert made available through Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church on December the 3rd at 6 p.m. at Blennerhassett Middle School? Completely free and open to all. Tell your friends. Do you see hope in the opportunity that churches have to reach those who maybe otherwise wouldn't be reached through programs like this? Do you see hope in unwavering joy in the face of a child? Do you see hope in a congregation as we celebrate the expectation of new life? Do you see hope in the faces of young people that come to know one another through the church and then represent our church in such a wonderful way? Do you see hope when you face the face of pure innocence? Or maybe you see hope in the face of sass. I didn't tell Olivia I was using that picture. She just found out, though. Maybe you see hope in laughter and silliness. And silliness. And silliness. And silliness. Wherever you might see hope, you are surrounded by it. Hope is something that is a constant in our life. God gives us glimpses of a future that's spent in happiness and joy with Him. And although the world tries to distract us and tries to take away our sight when it comes to focusing on the hope that He gives, we can see it all around us. Right in the face of Greg Capodona, we can see hope. It surrounds us. When I love a quote that St. Augustine said, "Hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are anger and courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to see that they do not remain the way they are." You see, God was blessing Elijah all along the way. And Elisha had the unique opportunity to experience it at his right hand. But he was not satisfied with just what they had. He noted that there was more they could do. And in hope, we have this birthing of anger where we're not satisfied with things. There are too many people dying in hopelessness today. There are too many people starved for something more than addiction and hopelessness that the world is offering them. So we're not satisfied. We're angry with where the world is. But we have the courage to make sure we apply ourselves to bring across the change that we want to see. Through the ministries of Mount Pleasant, we commit ourselves to doing something more than just accepting the status quo. How many of you gone to church here more than 10 years? 20 years? 30 years? 50 years? All right, Bargalos, which number am I going to? We got, let's say, 60 years. 70 years. God, isn't this wonderful? This is great. Over 70. We'll just call it that. All right, that's good. Look at this. And you see what has happened is they saw this church for years now as what it always has been, a cornerstone in this community. Now, when I started here, I walked into a new building with the church staff that smiles and has a good time. That hasn't always been the way Mount Pleasant has been. This building hasn't always been here. They've grown with a vision and hope for tomorrow. The saints that have gone before us committed their lives and their gifts and their talents to seeing this church grow and continue to do God's work, so we can be a beacon of hope in this community. And together now we carry that same torch of hope. We commit to sharing the hope of Jesus Christ like Elijah and Elisha did. So let's talk about Elisha for just a minute. Elisha means God of salvation. He was the son of Shaphat, and he was anointed by Elijah while plowing in his father's field with 12 yoke of oxen. Elisha was anointed and called in a time where he didn't think he would be. God disrupted his life. Isn't God pretty good at that? Calling us when we least expect it. I'm a good example. By all accounts, I shouldn't be here this morning. But God found a place in my life so I could see a hope, a calling. He laid it on my heart when I least expected it, just like Elisha. And although he least expected it, God still used him. For 50 years he served as the prophet of the northern kingdom. Some of his miracles include purifying a spring at Jericho, multiplying a widow's oil, bringing a woman's son back to life, purifying a poisonous stew, and multiplying loaves of bread. One act that you might be familiar with is the healing of the Syrian army officer Naaman of leprosy. Naaman was told to go and wash in the Jordan River 7 times. You see, Elisha was used mightily by God, even though he did not expect it from the beginning. What's interesting to see, though, is because of his commitment to what God was doing, God changed his life. You see, young people, when you tell you that church on Sunday is important, although seeing your smiling face is a bonus, it's not solely about that. The more that you commit to what God is doing, the more God changes your life. He makes you stronger. He makes you able to handle more. He gives you a joy that you never knew you had. That's what committing to this thing does, and that's what Elisha saw. Now, it was unusual for me to think of this, and I'm going to go back to let's just go through these one more time, just soak those in, would you? Especially this one. This could be one of my favorite all-time pictures ever. I just love this. Now, when this began, Elijah was pretty sound in his ministry. All right? He was going around doing God's work, and he had Elisha with him. He began to do God's work, and I believe there was a cloak, all right? And I bought 3 yards of this cloak because I didn't know what I was doing. And Corey said, "Did you want a cover for our car? Is that what you were going for?" But I didn't know. I just went and said, give me some of this. So he had a mantle on. Elijah did. And when Elisha was following him, I love it because he was so determined. Like, Steve's like, "Anthony, just stay here at the church. I've got to go do something." I say, "Okay, I'll see you when you get back. Wake me when you get back here." Not really. But Elijah wouldn't just sit by and allow God to move without him being present because he wanted something more. He was determined to receive a blessing. Come here, Ben. He was determined to receive a blessing that he couldn't imagine. We're going to do a not kids version of what I did earlier, okay? So this is Elisha. All right? And everywhere that Elijah went, Elisha went. Can you commit to that? Are you sure? All right. They're all watching, so no nervousness. So everywhere Elijah went, Elisha went. Everywhere he went. And he would go, and he would do God's work, and he'd be called to different areas, and he would stop and say, listen, Spunky, I don't need you following me around all the time. Just stay here. Just wait. And Elisha says, what? So long as our Lord lives and you live, I'm going to be with you. So he followed him everywhere he went. All the places that he was going to do God's work, Elisha never gave up. He was determined. He was sold out. He was determined to just wherever that God might lead them, they were going to go. Not that way, it's blocked off. So everywhere they went, he went. Because he was determined, he was sold out. Now listen, the world around him was trying to distract him. Elisha, do you know that he's going to get taken from you today? Do you know that? And what did Elisha say? Yeah, I know. So be quiet. Shut it down. And let me tell you something. I get so frustrated at the enemy's same old tricks. I get so brokenhearted when I see good Christian people going through the same hoopla that the devil's been putting us through for centuries. Too many times we allow the enemy and the world and the things around us to distract us from the joy that is rightfully ours. If you are called of God and you know him, you look at everything that's opposing you and say, so be quiet. Shut it down. Not for me today. I'm going on. I'm pressing through. And that's exactly what Elisha do. Every time they try to be negative, you know he's going to get taken. He goes, so be quiet. I'm still going to follow him. I'm still going to go in hopes that there was something more available for him. They come to the water. Elijah takes up his cloak, wraps it up probably much better than I just did, taps the water, and the water separates, and they walk through on dry ground. Now, at this time, there's a crowd gathered. Do you know that if you serve God, people will recognize that? You know that? Do you know when you post things on social media and then tell people you go to church, they will compare what you say on social media to your faith? Do you know that? So when you're negative and grouchy on social media, people are like, well, why would I go to church if that's all I'm going to get? So maybe be positive and kind and loving and show a broad example of what God has called you to be. That's an extra. You can take that for free. So at this point, a crowd had gathered and is watching the dashing young Elisha and his commitment. So devoted, he'll cook brownies blindfolded. That's commitment. That happened last week at the youth retreat, if you don't know. Ben is a baker, and he put in brownies all without sight. It was very, very inspiring. And so this faith began to make a difference to some folks that are just watching abroad. And then guess what happens? A chariot of fire, folks, comes out of the sky. Are you kidding me? Thank you, Elijah. You can sit down. Give Elisha a hand of appreciation for his... Here's what happens at this moment. They're walking along and talking together. Suddenly, a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them. And Elijah went up into heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw this and cried out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel. And Elisha saw him no more. Are you kidding me? If I was standing in the parking lot with Steve and a chariot of fire appeared and suddenly he was gone, I doubt my faith very seriously at this point. I don't know that I would just stand there and say, my father, the chariots of Israel. I think I would run inside and say, Elaine, I don't know what just happened. But he knew that this was all part of the plan. And although losing the one man that he looked up to most likely hurt and was devastated, he knew that his commitment wasn't in vain, that there was something waiting for him. And he pushed through when the world tried to distract him and take his hope from him. He pushed through anyway. I know every one of you in this place today can probably attest to going through a trial of some sort. Maybe your heart's breaking with somebody that you love because their heart's breaking. Maybe you're facing something that you just don't know how to conquer. Maybe you're uncertain of your future, unaware of what God is really doing in your life. Meanwhile, the world is all around you saying, you know, why are you even doing this? Why are you following God? So be quiet. Just be quiet. Never, ever lose hope in what God is doing in your life, because hope changes everything. So Elijah tested his faith. He picked up the cloak that had fallen. He walked over to the water and he commanded it to split and said, if the God of Elijah is here, show himself. And he did, because of his commitment and faith. He knew that God was with him. And then we read the miracles that he performed. God was with him, blessing him. You see, for each and every one of you, there's a double portion waiting. For each of us, there's something more, something better. Something that we can't even imagine. But we can never lose hope. We have to hold on to hope as it's something that we value more than anything else. And when everything around us seems difficult and falling apart, hope will get us through. And we take time to recognize where we see hope. We slow down in life and see where we celebrate hope. Congregations standing behind families, expecting joy. Seeing our children grow in God. Knowing that innocence still exists. This is also one of my favorite pictures. Hope is all around us. Determination in young people. That is I want to face the devil every day with that face. There is hope all around us. There is hope that we rob ourselves of because of life and the distractions that come along with it. But I'm telling you this morning, you walk out of this place this morning knowing that hope changes everything. I grew up in a life that would not lead to serving God. To be committed to a church was something that was not common in my everyday life. And because somebody cared enough never to give up on me, to teach me things like love and appreciation, commitment to family. You know, you have those family members that you always just think about and love, and you just, you know, I've got my Aunt Virginia here this morning. She's sitting right here, and she's one of them. One of those people in your life that commits to showing love to you and being there when you need them the most. And those moments you don't forget. I remember falling away from God and knowing that I have another aunt that when I was away from God, I knew without a shadow of a doubt she was knelt down in this wingback chair that's her God chair every morning praying for my soul. Because hope gave her something to believe in when it came to me. She knew that if she wouldn't give up, if she just prayed one more day, God would bring me back to where I need to be. And he did. You see, even as Christians, we fail sometimes to rely on our hope because life is hard. Things are difficult. Family members are sick. Family members are going through things. People are suffering, and it is hard for us to handle all of these things. And now we can quickly tell you as a church, well, come in and find Jesus and you'll know God and you'll find hope. But we forget to apply that to our everyday life when things are tough for us, when we can't answer the questions. Let me tell you, church, get a hold of that hope again. Hope changes everything. Whatever the situation is in your life, whatever is uncertain in your life, know that hope can change everything. I love the story of Elijah. I think of a great man of God. His name was Kenneth Prine in Harrisville. I think I've told the church about him before, but when I came back to God, he pastored a church for 30-some years. And he was the most humble and kind man that I've ever known. And the day that I knew I had to get back to God, I drove to Harrisville and went to church that night. And there he was, this pillar of faith. And here I was, a big dirt bag. And he came all the way to the back pew, grabbed me up, pulled me close to his chest and said, "It's time to come home." And I remember just crying like a big baby. I know that's a surprise, but I did. As he held and prayed with me. And I think to myself, I need the spirit of Elisha because I want a double portion of what Kenneth Prine had. I want faith in humanity like he had. I want to see beyond the problems and the situations, and I want to see the children of God that are yearning for something more. And this morning, if you're facing something and you just don't know where to turn, grab a hold of hope. We're going to sing here in just a minute. Actually, if our music wants to come, we're going to sing our closing song. And this altar's open for anybody who wants to come and pray. Come ahead, music, wherever you may be. And Jason. While they're getting ready to come, I'm a very visual guy. I like things to hold on to, all right? So when I bought 3 yards of unnecessary fabric, I told Corey I'd like to send a piece of this home with everybody so they can remember that hope changes everything. Well, I took Honor to bed last night, and actually Sarah and Summer were there with us. Our friend Sarah and Summer from our youth group many moons ago. They were there visiting last night, and I said, "I'll take Honor up to bed. I'll be back down." I never came back down. I just went to sleep. I felt any other dads do that? They just, fall asleep. So at 2, Steve, I'm still learning. At 2 in the morning, Honor wakes up, jumps out of bed, smiles great big, and just says, "Here I am, world. I know you've been waiting." So we go downstairs to get a drink, and I'm remembering as I'm walking down the steps that I have all this fabric to cut up. Anyhow, there it was in a pile. The fabric had been cut, and every one of them had hope written on it, because my wife stayed up until 2 in the morning to make sure that this was done. And then she said, "I prayed over every one of them." So if you ask me where I see hope, it's in my beautiful wife. And knowing what God has done for me, as undeserving as I was, to bring me to a place like this with people like you, hope changes everything. Down to my very core, hope changes everything. You can never give up. You've got to hold on to that hope. So these are for you. I want you to take these. We're going to have them back there. And as you go, grab one. Hold on to it. As you're facing the world, as the world is telling you all of the things you need to be negative about, grab a hold of this mantle and know hope changes everything. Let's sing. Stand with us and sing with us. If you feel led to come and pray, you're welcome to come and pray.
Number 368 in our hymnals.